Kristin Dennis Smart was born on February 20th, 1977, in Augsburg, Germany, to Stan and Denise Smart, both educators working abroad. Not long after, the family returned to the United States and settled in Stockton, California. Kristin was raised in a loving, supportive home and quickly stood out among her peers. She was tall, athletic, and ambitious. Kristin had a passion for travel and storytelling, and she dreamed of becoming a journalist. In 1996, she enrolled at California Polytechnic State University in San Luis Obispo, known as Cal Poly. She was just 19 years old, beginning a new chapter full of promise. On the night of May 24th, 1996, Kristin attended an off-campus party during Memorial Day weekend. She was last seen around 2 a.m., visibly intoxicated and unable to walk steadily. Two students helped her part of the way back to campus. Then, Paul Flores, a fellow student, offered to walk her the rest of the way. He was the last person known to see her alive. Kristin never returned to her dorm. The next morning, her friends became worried. But campus police initially assumed she had left for the weekend, and it took 2 full days before she was officially reported missing. When the investigation began, Paul Flores quickly became the main suspect. He gave conflicting stories about that night.
A stranger or what?
It could have been just someone she knows. Someone might have gone, hey, let's go to Taco Bell or something.
Why Taco Bell?
Because Taco Bell's open all night long.
Oh, okay. And is that the only place that's open all night long?
San Luis? Yeah, I think so, for sure.
Now, based on you walking with her, do you think she could walk up to Taco Bell okay?
It's I remember, I don't remember her stumbling or anything, so I walked that far. It's like I walked all the way up to like Broad Street over by the Orleans Bowl before.
When you were drunk?
No, sober.
Sober, okay. I mean, she was pretty drunk. You think she could walk up that far?
It's like I walked I walked a few miles before.
Okay, let's suppose, okay, that you're saying that's your best opinion if she's alive, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's suppose that something bad happened to her and she's not alive anymore. What would be your best guess or your opinion as to what happened to her if she's not alive anymore? What do you think happened?
I would say like someone who she hitchhiked with or something abducted her or something,
Why would she be hitchhiking?
Well, I'm saying, people said they saw her hitchhiking, so.
Okay, but those people are mistaken. Let's say she was last in the area of the dorms there where you walked away from her.
Okay.
And there's nowhere to hitchhike right in there.
He was seen with a black eye and scratches on his face in the following days. Still, no physical evidence tied him directly to Kristin's disappearance. Searches of his dorm room found nothing substantial. Without a crime scene or body, police were stuck. The case went cold.
Properly receive her and bury her.
Thank you very much. Hey, did you want to read it?
Yeah, anything you want to add?
Yeah. So we have some comments and then I'll respond to a few questions.
Well, all I wanted to say, I said upstairs. So today is a day not really of joy. It's a day of relief that Kristin's voice was heard. We are very fortunate that her voice was heard today, but it's not the voice any parent hopes to hear on the courtroom steps or in a courtroom. But her voice was heard, And that brings us a sense of peace, knowing that there will be no more victims. And that's the peace that we get. But it's also time for Los Angeles to give voice to the women who lost their lives. Well, they didn't lose their lives, but they lost part of their lives to Paul. And their voices have not been heard. And justice is for everyone. So if a man was assaulted, there would be justice. A sexual assault is an assault. And Los Angeles needs to step up and give voice to these women who have been silenced by their inaction.
Okay, any of you have questions that you'd like to bring up? We'd really like to thank all of you that are here for being so supportive and giving us media coverage. And we definitely are very appreciative of the San Luis Obispo area community, Arroyo Grande, Shell Beach coming back, and San Luis Obispo and the DA's office and the Sheriff's office for all the work that they've done. And without their help and your help, this wouldn't have come true today. But we're not happy because we don't have our daughter. We don't know where her remains are. And so, as the judge pointed out,
Kristin's parents, Stan and Denise, refused to give up. They launched a tireless campaign to keep her story in the public eye. They held press conferences, contacted media outlets, and demanded that authorities continue the search. Despite their efforts, the case faded from the headlines. In 2002, 6 years after she vanished, Kristin was declared legally dead, but no one had been charged. No body had been found. No justice had come. Over the years, Paul Flores remained in the background. He never left San Luis Obispo County. Women began to come forward, describing him as predatory and dangerous. Multiple allegations of sexual assault followed him, yet none had led to serious legal consequences. Despite being the prime suspect, Paul remained a free man. In 2019, a journalist named Chris Lambert launched a podcast called Your Own Backyard. Lambert began investigating the case on his own, re-interviewing old witnesses and uncovering new ones. He built a timeline, exposed inconsistencies in Paul's story,
attempts to hold Paul Flores liable in civil court, hundreds of news interviews, and even a billboard in front of his office, quite literally within walking distance of Susan Flores' home. Murphy is thankful Paul finally faced a jury of his peers.
I believe that the jury system is the place where that is determined. I have believed from the beginning that it was Paul Flores, and I think the facts are basic and obvious. The lies that he told, the promise that he made to Cheryl Anderson to make sure that she would get home safely, his rather dubious background, his bizarre behavior, his predatory nature towards women.
He was not in court for the conviction or the sentencing, but talked with the Smarts shortly after.
When did you talk to Denise and Stan after the verdict? How long was it, and what did you say to them, and what did they say to you?
I think I called them, or they called me. I can't recall. I mean, I make 100 phone calls a day, and I just told them I loved them, and congratulations for their courage. And I think they were happy yet disappointed because Reuben was not convicted.
When I asked Murphy about who he thought was responsible for finally moving this case forward, he gave much of the credit to San Luis Obispo County Sheriff Ian Parkinson, who made a promise to the Smart family that he wouldn't give up on the case. Murphy says he followed through with that promise. But he also gives credit to the Your Own Backyard podcast.
How much credit do you give Chris Lambert in that podcast for helping to get the case going again?
I couldn't praise him enough. I mean, this young man dedicated literally years of his life to this case. So he's a bit of a hero to me, as is Ian Parkinson.
Like so many others involved in this case, Murphy says he still has one regret, and the true heartbreak is not knowing where Kristin is and knowing the Smarts have not been able to properly lay their daughter to rest.
And it's important. It's important spiritually.
The podcast reached millions of listeners and brought intense pressure on local authorities to act. The Smart family finally felt heard again. In 2020, using cadaver dogs and ground-penetrating radar, investigators searched the home of Paul's father, Ruben Flores, in Arroyo Grande. Beneath the backyard deck, they detected human decomposition in disturbed soil. It was the strongest physical evidence in decades. Based on this, and years of witness testimony and behavioral patterns, prosecutors reconstructed what likely happened on the night Kristin vanished. Kristin was heavily intoxicated and vulnerable. Instead of walking her back to her dorm, Paul Flores took her to his room. There, investigators believe he sexually assaulted her while she was unconscious or barely responsive. During or after the assault, Kristin likely suffocated or was smothered, either accidentally or intentionally. Fearing exposure, Paul allegedly contacted his father, Ruben, who helped him dispose of Kristin's body, hiding her beneath the deck of his home. In April 2021, Paul Flores was arrested and charged with Kristin Smart's murder. Ruben Flores was arrested as an accessory after the fact, accused of helping to conceal her body. The trial of Paul and Ruben Flores began in 2022, more than 25 years after Kristin disappeared. Prosecutors presented witness statements, forensic findings, and a disturbing pattern of Paul's sexual misconduct over the years. Although Kristin's body was never found, the prosecution argued that the evidence was overwhelming. Paul's defense claimed there was no proof of murder, no body, no DNA, no crime scene. But jurors were not convinced. In October 2022, Paul Flores was found guilty of murder. He was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Ruben Flores, however, was found not guilty of being an accessory. Though Kristin's remains have still never been recovered, the Smart family finally had an answer. After decades of silence and frustration, justice had been served. At least in part, the story of Kristin Smart is one of unimaginable loss, but also of unrelenting perseverance. Her parents never gave up. Journalism, in the form of a podcast, made the difference when the system failed. The case is now taught in universities and law enforcement programs as an example of cold case advocacy. Kristin's voice was stolen, but through her story, countless others have been inspired to speak louder and demand justice when it seems out of reach.